What would you do if you spent years delivering at a high level, supporting leaders, carrying responsibility, being the steady presence behind the scenes? And then, when the promotion opportunity comes up, you're passed over. Not only that, you're asked to train the person they chose. Sybil Stewart lived that moment and knew her voice was valuable, but it wasn't being valued. This is the Your Next Success podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Segal. I am a life-first career coach and strategist on a mission to normalize questioning your career, because I believe each of us is made on purpose for a purpose only we can fulfill. The longer we live out of alignment with who we are, what we do best, and why we are here, the more we miss out, and the more the world misses out on what only we can give. The Your Next Success podcast is where we explore how to build a career that truly fuels your life. We talk about self-discovery, smart job search strategies, professional growth, and you will hear stories from people who have navigated big career transitions themselves, so you can create a life-first career and become your own version of authentic success. My guest today is Sybil Stewart. Sybil is a Christian business speaker and consultant who believes we are meant to do well, be well, and serve well. For more than a decade, she was the quiet voice behind influential leaders, global companies, and cultural movements. Today, she helps faith-led women in service businesses speak and serve at the highest level. As a TEDx organizer, Sybil is intentionally creating stages where women can tell their stories in a way that protects their voice and honors their message. There's a kind of success that looks impressive and feels like silence. You're doing the work, you're performing, you're producing, and somewhere along the way, your voice starts disappearing. Quietly, slowly, professionally. Today's conversation is about the moment silence stops being survivable. Sometimes you can be deeply trusted and not fully valued. Sometimes you can be the steady one and still be the one expected to stay quiet. What happens when you're passed over, then asked to train the person who was chosen? That moment isn't just a career moment, it is a truth revealer. In this conversation, Sybil shares the turning points that followed, how the cost of corporate silence showed up in her body, how faith and community rebuilt her life from the inside out, and how her work today is about creating what was missing, safe stages where women can tell their stories. Sybil Stewart, welcome to Your Next Success. I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to get to talk to you today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me here, Carolyn.
Thank you, Sybil. Okay, as you know, we're going to get to all of the beautiful, amazing work that you do to help Christian women with their businesses. You're also, I know, organizing a TEDx event that is going to be quite so spectacular. TEDx Morgan St in Durham, North Carolina. We're going to get to that. But I'd love to kind of peel it back, like way back. Help us understand, where were you born? What was life like for the very youngest little Sybil?
So I was born in Charleston, South Carolina,
Nice.
and everyone's like, "Where'd your accent go?" And I was like, "It's right at home where I left it. And when I go back home, I pick it back up and drop it off when I hit the interstate." But yeah, so that is where I grew up. My mom and my dad were both educators, as well as my grandparents, my aunts and uncles. So I tell people I'm a fourth generation educator. And we also were actively involved in music. So my mom's a professional musician, and the rite of passage was you sit at the piano, except for in our house, we didn't have a piano. We had an organ because my mom's an organist. So that was childhood me. And from there, I'm still a musician too, until today. I've even got my harp picture in my background and I play the harp.
Do you have a harp?
Yeah, I do play harp. Yes. The harp was actually my 35th birthday present to myself. I said, I am going to play this instrument that I fell in love with when I was 5 or 6 years old. I was like, it's going to happen. I was watching I Love Lucy, and there's an episode where Harpo Marx plays the harp. He plays Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And I remember yelling at the TV and my grandmother, I'm like, I want to do that one. Like, whatever this is, that's what's for me. And yeah, I just, it was a dream delayed, a dream deferred. Did not want to be a teacher. I was avoiding it because I knew what my parents, right? Both of my parents had second jobs to
Yeah.
feed, clothe, and keep, the kids safe. And so I did not actually want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a professional chef. I wanted to be a pastry chef.
Oh, wow. And do
Yeah.
you have hobby to do that?
In college, started selling my baked wares from the dorms, and it turned into a pretty nice business for a few years. So, yes.
All right, so you're in your littlest self. You are in a household and generations of educators, and
Yes.
you're realizing you've got some music going on. Maybe you've got some culinary things as well. And plus, this kind of doing well with sciences and math, economics, those kind of things. So, but what were your, littlest Sybil in elementary school? Were there particular school subjects that you liked better than others?
I was a voracious reader. You were going to find me reading the thickest book that I could find. You know, it was my way to escape. It was my way to dream. It was my way to live life through a different lens. And so I remember reading, and still today, I have way too many books. If a book needs a good home, mine is available. But
I got you.
I was in love with reading and learning, and I still love to learn. So, yeah, it was my fantasy moment. It was my dream moment. It was everything
I get
and
it.
still is.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have two sisters, so I'm the middle.
And as you get into middle and high school, was there any other interests that started coming in?
Yeah, so I wanted to do good for goodness sake. So I was in everything from Girl Scouts to I was student body president to you name science club, DECA, the dance team, the everything. I wanted my hand in everything. And at the time, I didn't realize not everybody can do that. Because they were like,
Right,
Sybil, how do you have the time to do this and maintain a straight A GPA, right? It's not like
right.
I'm a C student. Not that there's anything wrong with anybody, right? But like I was a solid A student and I still had time to do all of these activities. And yeah, I just thought everybody was doing it.
I I I can resonate a lot with that. If you are gifted to have something showing up for a good reason, we need to be letting that shine and utilizing ourselves in that way because in working in alignment with who we are, whether it's in our professional relationships or our personal relationships or our fun and our hobbies, we need to have outlets for all of those things or our energy isn't being like fulfilled and it's just
Absolutely.
not.
And
Yeah.
it
So,
depletes you, right? I feel depleted when I don't use up all of my energy throughout the day. I actually feel lower
right.
energy. I
Right.
feel exhausted physically, mentally, all of it. And so, and it's not about busyness. I never felt busy. I actually felt energized to go and
Yep.
serve. And I didn't realize that that's what that was. That was me at a very young age, just having a servant's heart to say, how can I help?
With the desire to help and also the abilities to
And the
help in so
ability.
many different areas and things. So, as you then get through high school, how did you decide what you wanted to do next and even that you wanted to go to college?
Oh, that it were my decision. And so, oh, that it were. So my sister's a doctor, and my parents just knew, oh, we're gonna have two doctors in the family. And so I went to college to get a chemistry degree. And I was like, well, I really don't want to be a doctor, but like, what's the closest doctor person that's not going to deal with the people, touch blood, look at anything strange? Pharmacy. So I was pre-pharmacy when I went to college. And I remember telling my mom and dad, I said, "Well, I really want to study kitchen chemistry." And they were like, "No, you're not going to be a chef. You're going to get a chemistry degree. You're going to be a doctor like your sister and, go through." And I got into year 4 of college. Like I'm telling you, the spring semester of the year that I should be ready to leave. And I was like, I don't like this. College was way too hard. And everybody says college is hard. No, college is way harder than it had to be. And I did well on the pharmacy exam and I was set to go to pharmacy school. And I said, I don't want to struggle for another 3 years like this. So in the spring semester of my senior year, I changed my major.
I get
Awesome.
it. No, I get it. Okay. Okay. Sorry. To what?
Awesome, terrifying, because I've got to tell my parents I'm going to spend an extra year in college.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. What did you switch to?
Yeah, so I said, what do you have enough hours in so that way they don't get too startled? And so I switched my major to psychology, which was my minor. And so then I ended up having a psychology major, a chemistry minor, and a concentration in statistics. And I loved statistics. Like I probably should have been a stats major. But I didn't know these things. And I think it's so important, right, to
Yeah.
give kids the breadth and depth of every career choice and say, here, you pick.
Yes. Yes. And part of what I'm trying to do, it's like, okay, I can still love this thing,
That's right.
right?
That's
But it
right.
doesn't necessarily mean like this is
My thing.
and also just for anyone listening, your thing can change. There's chapters and stages.
That's
So
I tell
it
my clients all the time, your things, if and when they do change, it was there to serve that part of you that needed that outlet in that season. And
yes.
so, we got, oh, Sybil's such a hobby hopper. Well, that particular hobby, I needed that part of my brain to
Yep.
either be activated or silenced or
Yep.
challenged. And now I don't need that hobby anymore. I now need this other hobby, but the core of me has not shifted.
Yes. Right. Exactly. That's the same thing. It's the skill
Yeah.
building either way, depending on what's the intention of where that's going to be used or served or fitting. Yes, I love it. Okay. We are aligned in way more areas than I thought. This is so cool. Okay. So you go to college, and by the way, I switched my junior year from chemical engineering, and then I tried to salvage it and got a bachelor's in chemistry.
See?
So, and then I went right on in and got a PhD in polymer science. So like whatever. Point is, and I could do it, and I could do it well,
Yeah.
but there were some parts of it that were draining.
Yeah.
And but still for me to have been classically trained in utilizing the scientific method in doing that to do original research, it has come to serve me way differently than I expected. And it gave me the ability to relate to some of those other people and to feel that visceral kind of tug of like, oh, and I'm looking around and I'm like, all these other people are really jazzed by doing these calculations of how the pressure drops through a pipe. And they're like excited. And I'm like, it's taken forever. And I'm just kind of thinking like, if I wake up, will this all be over? And then I would wake up and it was still due. Uh, so I get it. And I congratulate you for feeling that and taking action on it, because it would have been so easy to just settle in and do what your very loving, well-meaning
Parent.
family thought and wanted, right?
I know. Yeah. So literally, the joke is I'm one class away from a chemistry degree. Like that is it. I am this many classes away from a chemistry degree, but it's fine. So yeah, I graduated and I didn't know what I wanted to do with this big, psychology degree that I've got. And so I met with my then mentor and he tells me about public administration and this and that other thing. And so when I told my parents about public administration, what they heard was attorney. And so I scramble to take the LSATs that summer. I take the LSATs, I do the things, I get accepted in the law school. Okay. I did.
Awesome. But this is just showing like, give you a target, you will reach the target.
I will. I will.
And you might not love your life while you're reaching it. But if you set a goal out in front of you and if you buy in that you're going to get that goal,
It's happening.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I enroll in law school and I do a dual program for getting a master's and a JD at the same time. And after a year of the dual citizenship, I said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to make a decision. And I remember I was in a relationship with a third year at the time. And he said this to me. And at first I was really angry and I'm like, ooh, this is grounds for a breakup. But he said, if you don't love the law on both sides, you're not going to be a good attorney. Like he said that to me and it hurt, in
Yeah.
my 20 something, but 40 something, Sybil said, I'm so glad he said that because I have a love of law. It's why I went into HR because I do have a love of the law. I have a love of history and knowledge and application, but I could not, and this is the requirement of an attorney, I could not energetically argue for both sides. I only wanted to argue my posture, which would have made me a very thin, skinny attorney, right? But I'm only going to
Interesting.
take the cases of the people agree
Yeah.
with. Can't do that. And everybody is, our society is such that everybody, deserves due process. Everybody deserves representation. And so I would not have made a very ethical attorney. Not that I would have wanted to be unethical, but it is
Right.
ethical to represent the law. And that's what
Right.
you're charged for. And I couldn't do it.
Because you had this like morals and integrity and the way that you thought things need to be, and you weren't able to compromise the higher truth for the unbiased
And
law.
yeah,
But that was okay. So and then, and so he says this to you,
enough
and you're kind of mad at it.
mad
And
at it.
then what? Now you're able to reflect, like, oh, that was a good choice. But so, how did you go through that in
Yeah.
that moment?
In that moment, I looked at my course load and I said, because at this point, this is more like a logic game. And I said, I've got more courses completed for my master's degree than my JD. I'm going to go take my master's degree and I'm just going to wrap it up. And so that's what I did. And I graduated the following year.
Interesting. And then what did you end up graduating with?
So I have a master's in public administration.
And can you help the rest of the straight chemistry nerds in the room or on the call? What does that mean? Like,
It is
help me understand. Like,
it is literally an MBA, but for nonprofit and government work. Like we take
love
the
it.
exact same coursework as business MBAs. We do all of the same things, except we learn how to apply it for government, nonprofit, social services. That's the only difference.
Love
Policy
it.
work versus business work.
Thank you for helping shed the light. I'm not too proud to say. I was like, wait a minute, what is that actually? Okay, and then what? And so now you graduate with this thing,
I get this
and
thing, and it's the recession, the Great
oh,
Recession. And
yes.
the government is not hiring. So I have this very excellent degree that everybody said, you're going to work for the government when you graduate.
Right.
And then there's the recession. And that's how I ended up teaching.
Okay, okay. All right. And now from your, we didn't catch this part up though. From your bachelor's to your master's, you moved, right?
I moved from Charleston to the great state of Alabama. So I went to UAB.
And then now that you are free to go work, where did you choose to go and why?
I chose to go back home because there was a recession.
True.
So I
Okay.
moved back to Charleston. And I thought, I am not unpacking. I am not going to be here long. This is a layover in life. And I was there for 2.5 years. It was a pretty long layover. But I taught school during that time. I taught grade school during the day. I taught math and physical science. Apparently they didn't care that I was one chemistry
Yeah,
class.
right. I don't think that elementary kids would have cared for that because knowing what those later classes are, they're good.
They were good. So yeah, I taught high school and then I taught dance because I also have a dance background. So I taught dance. And then in the evenings, I took an adjunct position at the community college. So that was my time of teaching
What did you teach there?
chemistry.
Nice. Nice. Okay, but your multifaceted interests. Your high school kids by day and college kids in the evening, and still doing a variety, even in your teaching. Of course, it wasn't just one subject, it was all of Sybil in different areas.
To your parents' point, teachers don't earn very much, and there was a lifestyle I was accustomed to, and so that required two teaching positions.
And did you, outside of your multiple jobs, did you also do other things for fun? And what were those? Or did you even have time?
You make time for what's important. And at that time, I was a brand new auntie. And so every Friday night, it was me and my two nephews. And it was some of the best memories that I could ever have. Like, I
Oh,
would have totally been a living babysitter. I knew Friday at 4, I was going to get to hang out with my boys. That is
that's
what I
awesome.
did.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm sure that your sister was appreciative as well, too. So very, very cool. Okay. So now this teaching thing and your auntie beautiful service
Yes.
starts a transition, and what do you do for your career then? How do you make that decision of, I don't think this is it, and how do you make that next chapter?
So I ended up, they canceled my teaching contract at the end of the year because, newsflash to all the people out there, teachers only get contracts once a year. Like, you've got to wait for that to renew. So I'm sitting on the edge of the
Yeah.
seat. They don't renew me. And I hear God saying, go serve, right? Not go look for a job. God, I don't have a job. And I hear
Right.
God saying, go serve, right? And so I go to my church and I don't know what to do, right? Because when you're unemployed and things are looking
Yeah.
money already looking a little funny, and I go to church and they say, "Hey, there's this conference coming up, this HR conference," and I'm like, "Hey, I have a master's degree in public administration. Say more." And they're going to show people how to get jobs, and I was like, "Okay, cool." Well, I know how to get a job. I'm just trying to figure out why I don't have one. And
Right.
so I get to the conference and I meet the conference organizers and I start talking to them. And they said, it doesn't really sound like you need our help, but would you like to lead a table? And so I ended up leading a table at the conference that year. And then the following year, they invited me back because by then I was employed. And then I ended up being a conference presenter at the church conference for people, helping them get jobs. And what's really interesting is I found my career in HR because I was out in the community doing what I love to do, which is serving. And so often I tell my job seekers, I said, if you just go serve, and
Yeah.
people see you serving in a way that you enjoy, like don't go serve, at the soup kitchen if you don't like food, right? Like if you're
Right.
bad at cooking, don't go there. But I was serving in a place where I was going to be anyway. I was going to be at church. I was going to be around HR people. Let me go serve in this way. And so that is actually how I ended up getting my first HR job. Is somebody saw me serving and they were like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And I said, "This right here is what I do for a living, which is administrative work for the church and helping them with these conferences." And that's how I got my first HR job.
And then you spoke at that conference too. Had you been doing public speaking throughout your stuff, or was that your first
It's my first time.
immersion into public speaking was for this beautiful cause? Hey, this is so important. You listened to that still small voice. You followed it anyway, even though you weren't sure where it was going to lead. You showed up, you allowed your gifts and talents to shine through while serving others. And then this opportunity opens up not only for you to be working with HR and doing these other things, getting a job, but also this is now you stepping onto a public stage and
Yes.
communicating there too.
Yes.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, and then what happens?
I climbed the HR corporate ladder. I worked at that job for about a year and a half. I applied for a job up in DC and I got my first HR manager position. Then I moved up to DC and stayed up there for a couple of years, climbed some corporate laddering, came back down here to North Carolina, climbed a couple more corporate ladders. And, at this point, we're now, 11, 12 years into HR, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And what I would say is, I could always tell what my heart posture was when I was in these organizations as to whether or not I was going to be there any specific length of time. Like once I figured out how to pray over my success and over me and over the people who I'm supposed to be supporting, my discernment would get really flared up fast if I felt energetically that that organization was not right for me. And
Okay.
so I would say that. I remember um during COVID, God was trying to tell me to leave corporate and I would not leave.
How
I,
was that? How were those messages coming? And what were you what were you overriding?
yeah. So I remember just being really unhappy because in my journal, which I found when I moved, I found my journal where I wrote down my dreams and my dream was HR director. Well, now I'm an HR director. Now what? I'm an
Mm.
HR director in my mid 30s. God, certainly this is not it. I don't want to do this for another 30. I'm not ready to retire, right? And so I'm having these conversations with God. I'm like, I'm highly compensated. Everything seems hunky dory. I'm not quite as happy as I thought I would be with this title and pay that people say you're supposed to have when you're multiple six figures. And right.
Yeah.
And felt empty. And I was like, I don't want to feel empty, God.
Yeah.
And then things started to get uncomfortable in the workplace. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'll start figuring out how to leave. I had already saved up enough. It's me.
What was the discomfort? Would you mind like elaborating a little? Like, so it's like you're starting to have these questions and you're
Yeah.
starting to every now and then secretly kind of think about it. But then what were the uncomfortable work experiences that were also,
Yeah. So I was on a global, not on, I was leading the global team for HR, leading. They wouldn't let me hire anybody. All the other directors had teams except me. And I would go say, I don't need 10 people. I said, could I just get one? Could I just get two? Could I get a half of a person? Can you give me something? And they would say, oh, we don't have it in the budget. I'm like, but so and so just hired three people. Like,
yeah, yeah, that's not, yeah,
and then the next thing that happened is they had an open position for VP. And again, I never wanted to be a VP. That wasn't my vision, but I said, well, at least VPs have help. So I applied for the VP position. And I had been at this company for years. They sing my praises and they say, oh my gosh, we're so excited, blah, blah, blah. Will you train our new VP? We know you'll be great at it.
oh, and and what did that feel like for those at home?
And I looked my EVP square in the eye and I said, no, I will not.
Good for you.
And I think that for those of us who have ever had that experience of being under resourced in the workplace when we see other people have resources, this is not, I'm complaining. This is, I am watching an equity
Yeah,
happen. I'm
yeah,
over HR. I'm responsible for making sure inequities in the workplace don't happen, and yet the inequity is happening, and then it's directed towards me. Um, so that was my chief complaint. And they said, well, we hired a diverse person. That's not what this is about. You hired another man.
mm,
You didn't want a female in that VP position. You wanted an entire leadership team of men. So that's not really diversity. And so they onboard this gentleman, and he and I meet for the first time. And I remember he said this to me because, again, I'm in prayer. And he said, "Do you know why you weren't selected for VP?" And I said, "Oh, they told you?" And they said, "Oh, they didn't have to tell me." Oh, and they said, "Well, you're not likable. And until people like you, you're not gonna your career will go nowhere."
I need a second. I probably need about a lot of minutes. Um,
I didn't meet the likability factor. Yeah. And then he went
wow.
on to say how he didn't even have to apply for the job, because he knows Bob and John and all of them. And they said, "Hey, just come on." And he said, "Sure."
Oh, Sybil. I mean, like at that moment, I can see like like all the thing. And now it's like, seeing beyond that moment, it's like, okay, thank you for that. And I'll see that and we'll raise up a couple other notches. Um, and it did happen for you because that wasn't where you were meant to be.
Was not.
You had a higher purpose, higher things to be able to do. And also in that same moment, oh my goodness, that's awful. Like, that's an awful, awful thing for somebody to say, judging and for you to experience, and inequity in all of I, again, it's kind of rare that I don't have something to say, but that just stings so painfully.
Yeah. So I resigned. I think they
Good
thought
for
I was
you.
going to say, and I said, "I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to onboard you. You're the VP. You should know all of the things I'm going to teach you. So good luck." And it wasn't about being petty. It was about me being responsible to the people who I knew were looking to see what I was going to do next, the other women who I
Yeah.
was able to bring in the organization. And I said, "If you back up now, you are not standing in your truth." And
Yeah.
I said, "I'm not going to make myself a liar. I'm not going to lie to myself." And I quit. Um, and at that moment, that's when God said, "Go start your business." But I was not obedient. I looked for another job. And that was the longest year of work ever. I remember starting the job at the orientation. I remember saying to myself, "You have just made a big mistake." That was at
Really?
the orientation meeting.
So you had this nudge, you overrode it. You're now getting other feelings, and yet you're still trying to show up. And then what?
Yeah.
And proving yourself in this job that you chose.
That I chose, that I asked God for. I was like, "God, just one more job." I remember saying, "God, just one more, and then I'm gonna get ready." And the lies that we tell, "Oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get ready, I'm preparing, I'm
Yeah.
trying, I'm getting things in order. I don't have enough saved." I was telling
Yeah.
myself all of those things that we tell ourselves. It was the longest year and 2 months of my life. They were they made it very clear that they never wanted me in that organization from the time I started until the time I exited. And it nearly cost me everything. Um, Medically, mentally, spiritually, it nearly cost me my life.
The
Stay.
stress of all of this environment.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I'm not trying to pry,
No,
but I think this is so important for people to understand. And it's not for lack of trying, effort, smarts. It's none of it because I also overrode for way too long and I didn't connect. And I don't know if you connected at the time any health challenges or struggles. I
it,
surely didn't necessarily connect at the until it was really late. Oh, and I didn't realize until I no longer had that corporate role how freeing and how much of a weight I had been carrying by continuing to show up in an environment that wasn't
not the,
truly celebrating and appreciating me, even though I know I was doing some good work and
yeah.
helping some others. But okay, but what
It
was
was
your, yeah,
worry. I would go to brush my hair and my hair would start falling out. So that was a really solid sign. Um, and then I started having body aches.
Mm.
I would wake up, I had body aches. I was having nightmares. I was having insomnia. I was blacking out because I was working so much. They had so many projects on my plate to try and force me out because that's what organizations do. I was having blackouts. And I remember one time I was driving home and I was scared because I had my migraines where your vision starts to go. And I had a migraine on my way home and I said, God, I can't see. I just need you to get me home
Mm.
because I cannot see. Like literally the spots were,
Yeah.
I forgot what they call it when you have the auras when you have
Yeah.
migraines. So yes, I was a migraine sufferer. I was a
Had you
caffeine.
had migraines before?
No,
So migraines start showing up as this
yeah,
job, this give me one last job. And
last job. Um, and then I remember when migraine got so bad, it was debilitating. And so I went to the hospital, went to the urgent care, and they said, "Is there anything else going on?" And I said, my left shoulder just really keeps hurting. I said, I don't know if I slept wrong. Now, I did not know when you say your left shoulder hurts, you get bumped up to the top of the line, and for good reason. They want to make sure you're not having a stroke or a heart attack or any of those things. And sure enough, I get bumped up to the front of the line. They wheel me in the back and, they plug me up to the machines. They're like, Miss Stewart, well, what's your exercise? Oh, I run 3 miles a day. Okay, well, what are you eating? Oh, I'm pescatarian. Da, da, da. Well, what's your stress level like? I was like, well, things are happening at the job. I'm very calm about it. And then these other doctors start coming in because the machine's beeping. Critical. My blood pressure was that high. They thought that I was going to have a stroke right then.
wow.
Like, they were like, Miss Stewart, we need you to remain calm. I'm calm. I said, my head just hurts. If you just give me some Tylenol for the shoulder, sort of a thing. Yeah. By the time they told me,
And had you ever had indications before that your blood pressure, like regular checkups or anything, that it was out of whack or something that needed to have anything?
I have been a 120/80 kind of gal since, beginning of time here.
Yeah.
And yeah, when they finally told me what my blood pressure was, it was 179/113. I
Thank
spent
God that you actually went to the hospital.
It was debilitating. I said, I have never had a migraine this bad. Like I went for the migraine
Mm.
and then I come out and you're giving me stroke paperwork and telling me I've got to go see a heart doctor and they're worried about heart failure and they're worried about all of these other things.
And then what?
So I get out the hospital and I start praying for peace because I was like, God, I don't even care about this body right now. I just need peace. I said, you can do whatever you're going to do. And because of the mouthiness that I am, I said, but if this is how you're taking me out, please, like, just let me be at the footstool, right? Like, just please count this as my job well done because I don't know what else to do. I remember saying that. And I hear God as clearly as you and I are talking. He says, and you're going to have to quit your job. And I said, but God, I just bought my house. Like the house that you just blessed me with, you are now telling me I'm quitting this job. And
And
so
where
I'm like,
was this like location? Are you still in the DC area or are
no,
you
here in
somewhere
Durham.
down?
Yeah,
Oh,
here in
wow.
Durham. Went to Duke, good old Duke. Yeah. So my sister and brother-in-law, they come and get me because I'm not allowed to drive, right? I'm having panic attacks to the point of passing out. Um, I had what they call chronic panic attacks, which is where the minute one stops and starts, the next one kicks right in.
Oh,
So I could barely feed myself. I could barely clothe myself. I couldn't drive. And I was having nightmares just incessantly.
And this is before you left? Like you're having this just knowing you need to quit your job and all this is just compounding?
Compounding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hadn't quit my job yet. Yeah, I got out the hospital and these things are happening. And then I became agoraphobic, right? Because I had had so many incidences of when I leave the house, I'm a danger.
And what is agoraphobia?
Agoraphobia is fear of leaving your home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was afraid to leave my home. I was afraid to eat. I was afraid of everything. I was hyper vigilant because they had put that much stress on me. They were nitpicking all of the things. And so, all of that messes with your psyche.
Yeah.
And so, my sister's like, well, you've got to eat something. I'm afraid to eat. And she's like, well, let us hug you. No, you can't touch me. I'm hurting. My whole body was hurting. Like my whole body was in pain. Every time somebody would go to touch me, I would cringe because it was hurting so bad. It would hurt to sit. It would hurt to sleep. It was, the pain of it all was real, manifested or not, whatever people say, but like
It was real. Yeah. You're experiencing this real thing driven by, yes, the stress of the environment that you were in. And then what happened?
So that went on for a couple of weeks. They gave me, I don't know, a week and a half, let's just call it, to get myself together. And then he expected me to start logging right back in. Like I was at home crying in between meetings, panic attacks in between meetings.
And were you supposed to be in an office or were you allowed to be working remotely?
They didn't want me even working remotely. And I was like, look, I can't drive. And here's my medical thing. I cannot drive. And the good news is, right, we're on the other side of COVID. So work from home still was very much a thing. So you could argue, but not really, about whether or not I was being productive while I was at home. But yeah, my sister and my brother-in-law nursed me back to health. I had to learn how to trust myself to walk outside again. I had to learn how to trust myself to drive again. I had to learn how to trust myself to eat again, like in layers.
Yeah.
Over several weeks. And so I get back to Durham on a Tuesday. And I say, hey, you guys, I'm back in town, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be in the office on Monday. And that Monday, they terminated me for poor performance.
Oh. And you're still in HR, by the way.
Right.
And they are at this point aware that you
Yes.
have medical documentation.
Yes.
And I went back and got my HR certification just because I thought that was a fun thing to know. Interesting. Just interesting because that's.
But here's the thing in that meeting. I had been praying because, right, I had already decided God told me to quit this job. I was just going to figure out how to do it in a responsible way, right? So I was prepared in that meeting to say, here's my transition plan, and here's what I can do, and here's what I can't do, and all of these things. And I get in the room with the other two HR people and the interim person, and they start lying. Not right. Never have I ever had a performance pip, none of it.
Yeah.
And I remember one lady said, oh, we were just waiting to tell you. No, you weren't. And then another lady said, well, be that as it may. That was what her phrase was, be that as it may. And then I could hear God in the background saying, don't say anything else. So while they're doing this to me, I'm up here having a conversation with God. What do you mean I can't say anything? And God said, do not defend yourself. You bridle your tongue. And I remember, and he's like, remember Jesus. He stood before accused innocent. This is your opportunity to be more Christ-like. How are you going to manage this moment? And then I felt peace that really does surpass understanding while they were lashing at me. And they said, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" And I said, "No, thank you for your time." And I logged off.
And because they terminated you for performance, does that mean that's it, deuces, or did they give you a severance package?
They did not want to give me a severance. So I had to hire an attorney to get the worst severance package ever created. And that is how all of this business of being in business began.
Oh, yeah, it's by choice or by force that
It-
it happens, right? And
That's right.
either way, it's going to happen, but you had kind of had this inkling, and but yet also I'm awed by your obedience in that moment of listening.
You
And
know, God
I'm
has
just saying,
you choke on your words too.
I get it. I was laid off one time and I had felt this, like, I felt literally, and I'd been praying for a way to be able to be home with my kids. And I felt these like angel wings. I felt a hug.
I didn't feel
And I
like
was like, okay. And then I still,
God didn't give
right?
me a hug. God
But
gave
like,
me a
I'm
hug.
like, I didn't get the message loud enough. I got the hug, but I didn't get the shut your mouth. And I also don't know that I would have listened at that moment in that lifetime.
I felt him
But
do
yeah.
this. Like, people
Yeah.
push me back. I could feel him pushing me back in my chair. Like,
Wow.
it was almost like he was protecting me while I was bracing for impact, and he was restraining me so that I didn't say anything. It was very much like he was like, "No, you step back." Like,
Wow.
that was the feeling I got. It wasn't a hug. No, no, no. That was like, oh, he was like, I got this. And he pushed me out the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the feels. Now I see it as beautiful, but in the moment it'd be like, what? What are you doing? Thank you, firstly, for sharing all of these things. And I'm sorry that you had such horrible experiences with other parts of God's creation. And I'm also inspired at, like, look at it, right? Like, seriously though. Like, his plan is better than what was my plan, than, what had been your initial plan. And I can't wait to see the rest of this story, and do that. Imagine what your life would be like if your career aligned with who you are, what you do best, and actually fueled the life you want. At Next Success, we support all ages and stages through career transitions, from students exploring majors or careers to job seekers actively searching or reimagining their next move, to professionals committed to self-awareness and leadership growth. Stay connected and explore what's possible at nextsuccesscareers.com, and follow Next Success Method on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So, had you pre-thought about having a business? Did you have, like, you now find yourself in the midst of an opportunity to do something different?
Yeah.
It didn't come in the way that you had anticipated or expected.
It did not.
And it's on the heels of health challenges that were related to being in your past employer. So, how did you navigate that? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah. So what I will say is, God really showed himself through my church community. It was almost like he knew I was going to not follow directions, sort of a thing. So when I was on the tail end of exiting corporate, I decided to join Rooted Group at my church. And I don't know if you're familiar with Rooted, but it's like a community, a micro community in the church, and you go through, an 8 or 10 week module thing, and it's supposed to draw you closer to God, introduce you to new people at your church, that sort of thing. Now, I don't know how this happened, because rooted groups could be anybody. Well, I end up in the all women rooted group.
Wow.
And there
Yeah.
are 12 of us. And I'm like, oh,
Are you the apostles for this next generation? Like,
I have a fabulous group leader, and I just think so much of her. So if she's listening, Beverly knows I think just the world of her. But as I'm exiting corporate, like I said, I'm afraid to leave my house. So that means I can't grocery shop. I can't get my medicine. I can't do anything. And they notice, because I'm a faithful steward of going to church, they start noticing my sisters. Sybil hasn't been to church. She hasn't been to small groups. She hasn't. They started showing up at my house and rotating through and making sure I ate and cleaning my house and helping me to walk outside again and driving me places so that I wouldn't have panic attacks, and cooking and cleaning and praying over me. And I mean, these women poured into me for so many months when I could not, stand myself.
wow. Did they, how did the first one get in? Because I admit that when I'm going through some stuff,
Yeah.
and if I have people that want to reach out to me,
I was in denial. Yes.
there are so many, and there are a few people who've been my tried and true friend. They don't live near here, but they know. And I talked to one just a couple weeks ago, and she's like, I didn't hear from you for a while. I just, so you know, I don't know what's going on, but I've been praying for you. And it was almost like that moment where it's like you're thinking you're all together, and then there's that moment it cracks open. But like, how did the first person that came get, how like, did you just realize I'm going to accept this person regardless? I don't feel like any of this, and now this is my church family, but I'm going to go ahead and let her in the door. Like,
It was
how'd you
more
get
like,
through that?
how some people just have that way. And
Yeah.
she said, I know you don't want to come outside, but like, she kind of dangled the carrot, if you will. And then, of course, when she shows up, she was like, I know you said I can't come inside, but just in case, I'm going to stand at the door. And I'm just like, we can't let her stand at the door. And so she like stands inside and closes the door. And I know what you said, so you go sit on your sofa. I'm going to stand right here. And she literally inched her way into the house until I would let her come be near me.
Wow.
And like, she was not going to let me do this alone. She was not going to see that happen. And
Wow.
and I remember, she was like, I'm going to tell you, I already told the sisters. And I kind of sighed at it, and I was like, well, whatever, it's fine. And then all of them start texting me, hey, Sybil, we're praying for you. Let us know what you need. And of course, I'm too big. I don't need anything. No, thank you. Right. I'm very much that.
Right.
A terrible receiver. And then I didn't know she was scanning the house. And around. And next thing you know, DoorDash is showing up at my door. Hey, Sybil, we want to make sure you ate. Next thing you know, Sunday after church, hey, Sybil, and these women don't live anywhere near me, okay? Going out of their way. Hey, Sybil, we're just in the neighborhood.
Totally for you. Totally for you. We're in the neighborhood because we're on our way to make sure we take care of you.
Take care of you. And like I said, would come and cook and clean and make sure I had clean clothes and make sure that I washed my hair. And they really poured into me.
And just loved you
And just
without judging. They just came in and just showed you nothing but love and grace.
Nothing but love, grace, support, taking me to my doctor's appointment because I wasn't able to drive yet. Like, I remember one of them, she said, okay, we're going to go inside a building. Like, I need people to really understand how severe agoraphobia is. So it's not just, I can't leave my house, but it's how long it takes to get in a car, how long it takes to get out of the car, how long it takes to walk across the parking lot. And my first field trip out of my house was Target. Right when they
Wow, that's a
first
big trip.
right when they
That's still a
first
big trip.
opened, right? Like super dead. Target's right down the street from my home. Um, because I needed the medicines that the doctors had me on, and she said, we're going to do this together. And she got to my house right when Target opened and bundled me up in the car. I don't know how long it took me to walk inside. And she literally sat there at the car and prayed over me and waited for me. And it was literally one step, one step, one step. And we stood at the door of Target for about 5 minutes. And I'm trembling. And she's like, it's okay. We're going to be here until you're ready.
Wow.
Like, it was
Now, how long had you known these women?
not, we had known each other 6, 7 months.
Wow. But here this group had been made and fashioned, and you're part of this group, and just these beautiful, supportive people found you as you were,
As I was.
loved you anyway,
Yes.
and just stood with you through this really, really challenging time.
Yeah.
And they all have their own lives and their own
Mhm.
stuff of what's going on.
All of them. All of them. And I mean, literally, one lady drove all the way from near Pinehurst to come and take care of me. Like, she had an hour and a half drive. And she said, I am not
Wow.
leaving your side until I know you're okay.
Aside from your own sisters, had you ever experienced this sort of love, acceptance, appreciation, genuine pouring into from anyone else thus far?
No,
And of course, your mom and aunts and all that, but
no, yeah. God saw fit to send his earthly angels to cover me.
and you, again, through this really difficult time, allowed yourself to open up to this experience that he's putting there for you.
Yeah.
Had you ever had these kind of like challenges ever in your life, like mental health, scary, kind of anything before? Wow. So many uncharted territories. And yet he's going to see you through it and bring you people that you needed in that moment. And many different women.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And they literally rotated because they knew I couldn't, take a lot of stimulation. It'd be 2 or 3 of them and it would rotate. Another 2 or 3 and they rotate and they rotate and they rotated. And like they didn't miss a beat.
So, and through this, you start having even more of an appreciation for the beauty of women together,
Absolutely.
supporting each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without them, I don't know what my healing journey would have been like if I tried to have done it alone.
And your own sister and her husband, how far were they from you?
Yeah. So 4.5 hours.
Wow. Because they were the immediate
The
helpers.
immediate helpers. Yeah.
And now you found these new sisters. And of course, we're all brothers and sisters, right? But it just sounds so great. We're all brothers and sisters in
great.
God, right? And then it's just like, okay, all right, interesting. But yet here you are, you find a whole bunch of sisters.
Yeah.
That put themselves in a place to really just pour into you.
Yeah.
Without expecting or anything. And it's not like you'd known them long enough to give them all of your awesomeness.
They just, yeah, I remember one of them saying she saw my light And I was like, oh, thanks. Because I'm feeling very dim right now, but thank you.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it was in that moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I don't know what okay looks like. And I remember praying again, and I said, well, I'm not going back to corporate, right? Like, this is not going to be a thing. I remember praying again. Because I was still having pretty reasonably decent, and by reasonable, I mean horrible, panic attacks. And I
Yeah.
remember having one that was so bad that I was just like, I was exhausted because it had lasted so long. And I was by myself. They had already left. And I slept. And it's probably the first time I had slept in seemingly forever. And I finally sleep. And I could hear God saying, like, here's what you're going to go do next. And God gave me the vision for my business in that dream. And I don't even remember writing it all down, but like perfect penmanship, it had to be me writing.
Of course, you have perfect penmanship. That was a conversation from a week ago. You're like, do you have good penmanship? And I'm like, I want to help, Sybil. And I don't think that's my role.
Fine, but yeah, I've got perfect penmanship. And there it was when I woke up the next day and I was like, when did I write all of this? It's like 7 pages worth of stuff.
Wow.
Of here's how you're going to run this business that you're going to start. I could not have made that up. Like, I could not have made up this business that I'm in.
Wow. Okay, so tell me a little bit about this. Tell us a little bit about this
Yeah.
business. This divinely inspired, proclaimed,
Yes.
written down. When you have a doubt, you can go look at the little pre-manual.
I can go look at my graph paper because that's what I wrote it on. I wrote it on some graph paper.
Of course it was graph paper.
Of course it was graph paper. Why is there graph paper in the nightstand? I don't know.
For this.
Yeah. But no, God gave me 2 very, very specific instructions. And he said, go speak and go create safe spaces and tell her story. That is what God told me to go do. And I said, I don't know what this means, God, right? Because I got like a lot of details of pages, but like the period dot was go speak, go create safe spaces and tell her story. It's like, okay. So I started feeling better and I'm like, go speak. Okay, what does that mean? Do people get paid to speak? Maybe so. So I find this phenomenal group called Innovation Women by a Google search. I'm like, speaking groups for women, ... And all these things pop up. And I'm like, well, that one looks safe. And so I joined Innovation Women. And I'm like, okay, well, now what? Like, these seems like a really good group of gals, pretty low entry fee to join the group. I'm trying to figure out if this is a gag or not, but okay. And I join and, the owner's lovely. Everybody's really amazing. And I said, okay, how do I get paid? Because I don't have time. And everybody says, oh, it's going to take you a year to get paid. It's going to take you 6 months to get paid. It's going to take all of these, lengths of time. And I was like, I don't have time. I got my first paid speaking engagement 76 days after I started. Like, nobody has that testimony, right? But for the fact that I was doing my darndest to figure out how to be obedient. And I said, well, God said, go speak. Let me see what speaking looks like. And it wasn't some big paycheck, okay? It was the possibility of the paycheck. It was $800 and a flight. And I said, I need some income. Let me just see how this goes. So my first speaking engagement, $800 for my flight. But then a couple of weeks later, I get a $2,500 speaking engagement, and I get a $3,000 speaking engagement. A couple months later, I meet, not even a couple, like I'm saying like a couple of, like 1 month later, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the ladies from the group that I had met said, "Hey, I've seen you in the group. I follow you on social media. Um, my plane is stuck. Can you do this presentation for me? You live in North Carolina." And I said, "Sure, where's the presentation?" It was at the C-21.
Yeah. Right there.
What? So here goes another speaking engagement. I do that engagement, and they're impressed with me. And one of the ladies who is her partner says, "Wow, Sybil's amazing." And then they bring me on for a 1-year speaking contract with their company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there ain't nothing my God cannot do. Oh,
Okay, so that's part of the speak that you're doing.
yeah.
And then there was another part of that
Create
mandate.
safe spaces. Tell her story. Yeah. So interestingly enough, because I was still trying to figure this thing out, I wrote a social media post on LinkedIn. I hadn't been on LinkedIn in forever. And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing on here because I'm not looking for a job. So I just kind of start dabbling. I don't care about the algorithm. I'm just talking. And I write this post about post-traumatic stress after exiting corporate. And this lady DMs me and she says, "Hey, I'm with Business Insider. I think it's a gag."
Right. Right. Because I've gotten some of those gags, right?
We've gotten gags before. She's like, "Hey, I'm with Business Insider. Your story just popped up on my mini feed. I couldn't help but reach out to you." And I'm like, "Ha ha, Business Insider." Like, no, seriously. I write for Business Insider. Da, da, da. We would love to feature you. Okay.
Wow.
So I get featured in Business Insider. All of a sudden, I got clients. Okay, I can create safe spaces. I'm really good at that, right? That was my assignment in corporate. What am I teaching this woman? I'll teach them how to, you know, build their career, build their brand, build their whatevers. So in the midst of that, featured in Business Insider, was not chasing it, was not looking for it. I get another DM from another woman, and she says, "Hey, I have a woman's network that streams on Roku. I heard about you. Would you like to have your own talk show?" What? I get a talk show for being obedient? So I'm a year-ish into entrepreneurship. I'm speaking around the US. I'm in the Business Insider, by divine ordinance and all that. And now I'm on Roku with my own talk show telling her story. Oh, okay. God, what else you got for me?
Wow.
Yeah.
How did one of the ways that we got connected come into fruition? Tell about your TEDx involvement.
Yeah. So when I thought about the clients that I was working with, I pivoted because what I realized is I didn't want to help women stay in a job they hated. I didn't want for them to turn into me, where you're earning all the money and you're losing your soul. Or I talk to people, I said, you're checking God at the parking lot, or you're leaving God at the coat hanger when you walk in the office, right? Like, coach, God check, and you go
Yep.
inside. And I said, I don't want to help women do that anymore. And so I said, okay, God, how can I do better at this? And it's so be careful what you ask God. So all my clients went away. I want to be very, very clear. There was a season of 0 clients because God had to reorient me to the new clients that I now get to serve, which are women in business, Christian women in business. And I said, I would much rather help a woman build a business or stay in business than stay in an organization that's not treating her well. As I started working with these women, and they kept saying, oh my gosh, it's so hard to get on a stage, or I don't know how to get on a stage, or why aren't people paying me to speak? And I'm like, I get paid to speak. What's going on here? Right. And then looking at the statistics of paid speaking, 70% of the paid speaker are men. So that's 30%. And of that, only about 12% are women of color. I'm like, wait a minute. Now I am back where I was in corporate, the anomaly of it all. And
Yeah.
I don't want that. And when I ask these women who I work with, and they start talking about stages and being present, and I said, well, what stage would you like to be on? And they said, oh man, just like I really want to be on a TED. And so I started doing research. I'm like, well, I don't have to be on a TED, but what's this all about? I've seen TED Talks. I think they're fabulous. And I met Dr. Sarah Glova, who I'm sure you know, she's absolutely fabulous. I met her actually in Innovation Women, and I was like down in Durham, and she's like, me too.
That's awesome.
We meet in person, and she's like, yeah, I really want to TED. Da, da, da. And I said, okay, help me understand why people want this TED so bad, because I just don't see it. And, it's a part of my plan, it's visibility, it's all these things. I said, well, what if I hosted TED? And she looked at me, and I was like, no, seriously, like, what if, with your help, because I don't know what I'm doing, I host a TED and we figure out how to create a TED for women. I didn't even know if TED for women existed. And so, yeah, that was last year. Because I said, if this is the need, how can I meet the need? How can I make it intersect? And how can I make it as seamless as possible to serve well the people who need this the most? And the people who need it the most are the women. And so I said, okay, great. So she was one of my first TED speakers, along with 4 other ladies last year. Her TED's done fabulous, over 300 something thousand views. But to know that that is the hurdle. We need visibility. We need a stage. There's so much competition for stages. That means there's not enough people building the stages.
Oh, yes.
And so how can I do exactly what God called me to do, which is speak, create safe spaces, and tell her story? Oh, that's a TED. That's easy. Slam dunk. And the ability to not do that again, in March, I've got 9 ladies this year, 2 of which are students, phenomenal young ladies. And a part of it for me is evolving even as I serve, because now it's not just about telling her story. It's about protecting their voice so they never feel like their story is ever compromised, like so many of us have.
Yeah.
Where we felt violated, where we use our voice, where we felt minimized, when we tried to advocate for ourselves. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this, yes, I'm going to create your safe spaces to tell your story, but I want to create a safe space for them to know what it looks like to safely share your story, so that you know what to look for.
I love it. I'm so excited to be volunteering to help make this event that you're working on of telling her story to really be quite impactful. I'm going to try to help you get the word out and get those stories shared. So tell a little bit about, when is that event? How do people find out, people local to the area, how can they come and support it? People who are not, because this podcast, last I looked, was like in 47 countries and 300 something cities. So how can they watch after the fact, like both and?
Both and so yes, it is happening on Saturday, March 21st. It is going down at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have an amazing VIP experience. I think VIP is just about sold out, though. I think we had one dangling ticket, but we are going to have a harpist in the VIP room. I am not going to be the harpist in the VIP room, but
Are you also not supplying the harp?
I am also not supplying the harp. Yes, she has harp will travel. But one of the ladies from the North Carolina Harp Ensemble that I've had the pleasure of performing with
Oh, wow.
is going to grace us with her gift and her present. And she's an absolutely lovely young lady. And so that's going to be the VIP experience. Get a chance to meet and greet with the speakers, have a lovely meal. If you have never been to the 17th floor of the Durham University Club, I'm just saying the food is amazing there. So doors will open up at 11 for VIP, 11:30 for general admission. We have some amazing vendors who are supporting us as well. So I want to make sure to shout all of our vendors and sponsors out. We have THL Solutions, their financial group. We have a counselor who is supporting us as well. We have Clark and Burke IT Solutions, who made a really phenomenal donation. And we also have Jewel Smith, which is located here in Durham. They do custom jewelry. So if you've got a wedding anniversary party, just because opportunity, they do amazing jewelry work there as well. And they were actually one of our stage sponsors last year. And then they re-upped and became a stage sponsor again this year as well. So we still have tons of sponsorship opportunity. We've got our general admission tickets still available. Early bird have already sold out. So that is where we are. And I'm just so blessed that the community has rallied around these 9 women. I would love to say y'all are rallying around me. I appreciate it, but to know you all are rallying around me on behalf of the 9 ladies who are taking the stage is just absolutely amazing.
Where can they find tickets? And how, if people are, let's say Christian business owners and they're looking for a business coach, how can they also
Yes.
get in touch with you?
Visit me at sybilstewart.com. That's SYBILSTEWART, sybilstewart.com. If you are interested in getting those fabulous tickets for this fabulous 9 ladies, that is sybilstewart.com/RSVP. Our speaker lineup is, I just want to talk about our speakers for a second, if you don't mind.
Please.
So last year's was telling her story. That was the theme because you got to honor God, of course.
Yeah.
This year is all of her, and we're going to look at the stories but behind the modern day woman. And we've got a phenomenal lineup. We have a former physician who talks about medical gaslighting. And she talks about her story of being medically gaslit as a physician, which is just ridiculous. We have a lady who is a nuclear scientist talking about the future of environmental protection. Our kiddos are talking about what it means to be a youth and making big strides in literacy and networking. We have another lady talking about post childbirth as a mom, because so much literature focuses on the child, right? The baby. There's an entire class of science that is dedicated to here's what the mom is going through that first year after giving birth. We have a lady who talks about how she immigrated to the U.S. We have another lady talking about how her hair held her back in corporate. So many great stories. Another lady talking about being worthy and what that looks like. How do you be worthy in the workplace? So such a great lineup of speakers. I pray I didn't forget anybody. We've got our financial lady talking about financial health, because wealth is being transferred right before our very eyes, and we need to be prepared. And most women are not. So yes, incredible lineup. visit sybilstewart.com/RSVP. If you want to check out our lineup, just go to TEDxMSW.com. So TEDxMSW.com. All of our speakers are listed there.
I love it. And then let's say somebody finds this episode months from now. How do TEDx talks become searchable, and how would they search that?
So
Yeah.
what's really amazing is TED does that work for us once we submit the videos. A little peek behind the curtain. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the videos to appear on the official TED website. The speakers, of course, get notified first that their videos are available. And then from there, you can literally search these ladies' names. So when you go on TEDxMSW.com, if you click their bio, it will link directly to their TEDx's.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so Sybil, we've talked a lot about your story behind the scenes, all the twists and all the turns, what you thought you were chasing, what's ended up evolving and opening for you. And I'm so curious. I'm really big on authentic success. And that's, personal to you. So how do you define your authentic success in this moment?
Yeah, I chalk it up to the thing that I tell all of my clients. I want to do well, be well, and serve well. And it used to be a trade-off when I was in corporate, right? I was doing well, I was serving well, but I wasn't being well. Like my being was not well. Or I was doing well and being well, but I really didn't like serving because you've got me doing something I really don't want to do. But to have those three things in alignment where I feel like I'm doing good and advancing the kingdom, where I feel well, right? My wellness is a priority and I can serve well. And serving well for me is, can you serve in excess, right? Not just am I getting compensated for serving, but can I go out and volunteer? Can I serve even the least of these? Can I go and buy somebody a lunch just because I've been so blessed? And those three things are the alignment that I look for in business and in life now. And it really did happen when I turned my business. I surrendered my business to God. I said, God, I don't want to leave any of this my way. And so I tell people I'm not the CEO, I'm the chief steward. No pun intended, but I'm the chief steward of this business. God is the CEO. I will take your direction.
Oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you for all of this just beautifulness that has emanated from your being. Thank you for sharing all of the twists and turns and the challenges that you've overcome. And I love how you are supporting women and you really are fulfilling that mandate. So thank you so much for your story. Thank you for being on Your Next Success. I'm just honored to have had this conversation with you.
Thank you. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you for creating another safe space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sybil, thank you for our conversation and for all of the beautiful work you're doing. Thanks for listening to Your Next Success with Dr. Carolyn Sengel. Remember, authentic success is yours to define and includes aligning your career to support the life you want.